What's up, Robin?
All right, somebody say something.
Something.
Good, Nicole, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's nice to see that you know how to follow directions implicitly.
I try.
So, Robin, are you there? Earth to Robin. Uh-oh, he's doing it again. Oh, he walked away. Oh, there he is. Oh, wait, let me get my headset on. Oh, yep. Oh, Earth to Robin. Earth to Robin. Come in, Robin. Well, he's not even plugged in yet.
Oh, no, it should be.
Oh, there we go.
Let's do a quick check to make sure I, blah, 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 blah.
1, 2,
Mute,
3.
mute, 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 mute.
We can hear you.
So, Robin, how'd your first 8-1 go?
Awesome. Awesome. But I got so lucky. So I think it was a dice roll, and I just got, if it were a card game, I just got, you know, a full house. So I got a really good class. It was still up to handle, and I had Maggie Dean here, you know, Coach Maggie Dean as a range aide, and half the time I would turn around and everything was like set up. I don't know how I would have done solo, not with that many students, but I'll get good at it. Time will tell. It was fun. It was really fun.
Stacked the deck, didn't you?
Robin,
Stacked the deck.
What's Christopher?
I have one this weekend.
An 8-1?
6-1 solo.
So, okay. So I assume you've done that before, right? Come on, you're Chris Rector.
Sometimes. It's not
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, if you're not, when they're on break, you are not. We get no breaks. I'm going to be doing doubles this weekend with Kyle Mason. He's the assistant program guy for Total Rider. So we decided to stack them and split the pay. So it's going to be 2 coaches, 2 on 8 for 2 classes back to back. All we're going to end up doing is just giving each other crap the whole time. I know it. It's going to be a giant circus show. But it'll be fun. How is everybody?
I'm doing well. I went for a ride today.
Oh, you did now? So did I. Go on.
Yep, about 250 miles. Saw some nice foliage in upstate New York. So we're cool.
Nice. Very cool.
Mike Hahn, happy birthday, buddy.
Hey, I'm still trying to reach New Mexico, just as an interesting topic to bring up. I have not.
Are your arms not long enough, or what?
I haven't heard from anybody there. I sent an email and left a voicemail, but I don't even know if their programs are running. Who knows? So,
Were any of them on Tribe Talk?
Well, I was just going to say, Mark Weiss, do you have good contact with Dan Orchowski?
All right.
I thought I saw Mark come on, but he might not have full voice, but I think he has done some stuff with Dan.
Okay.
What number did you try, Robin?
Shoot. I think the one
Go
for
ahead,
the
Nicole, you're up. He said
Facebook
shoot.
page. The one for the Facebook page. There was somebody I had posted about this.
Try
and
877-667-8880
667-8880.
or 505-312-8430.
505-312-8430.
Yeah,
Or what was the, is it still 505 for the first bit?
877 for the first one.
877-667-8880.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll save that as New Mexico. I mean, watch all this effort. They're going to be like, we don't accept out of state, which is fine. Saved on desktop. Thanks, Christopher Rector, as per usual.
Hey, I'm here to support you, guy.
Thanks, man. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody.
What's up, Dennis?
Hi, Dennis.
Hi, Dennis.
You want to take over? Yeah.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Ron.
What's happening in Jersey?
Not a heck of a lot. Just season's winding down. All's well, though.
All right, that's good to hear.
Been working with Bob Simpson, in contact with him quite a bit.
You have my sympathy, sir. Oh, just kidding. Really, just kidding. He's one hell of a guy.
Yeah, he spearheaded our QA this year, and organized it based on his experience, and it's going pretty well. Most providers are cooperating, so yeah, we're on a goodwill tour this year, though.
Yeah, wait till this stuff starts hitting the fan, right?
Well, I think our goal is to do we're doing 2 visits per 2 announced visits per site, and I think we will probably have a Zoom meeting to review the results of what we're seeing, and then maybe develop a PDW over the winter. I believe that's probably the way to go.
Yeah, that'll probably sound like that sounds like it'll probably work pretty well.
Yeah, we're that's our goal, and mostly everyone's cooperating. A little bit of pushback, but not what I no, just about what I expected. Just a select few.
So how many of you guys are QAs that are on this?
We have 6.
Okay, for your group, but you guys on this Zoom meeting, how many of you guys do QAs?
Oh. Well, I do.
So I've been lurking in the background, so this is the first time I've actually spoke up. I teach here in Eastern Iowa. I think this is my 6th year. Started doing QAs a couple of years ago. Last year we really didn't do any, and this year our state DOT decided they would pay us to do QAs. So several of us have. The goal for this year was there's several of us each were to do 2. And we've had some good and some bad. So we're trying to decide what to do with that information. One of the things me and my rider coach trainer have been hashing over is you have adequate or beyond level 1, and then you have stellar, and then you have needs improvement. And we were looking at some of the other QAs, and some people, I think they're just checking the boxes on the form. And, you know, several people from certain QAs have had lots of stellars. So we were trying to decide, you know, what criteria is there for needs improvement and what criteria makes it stellar. Myself and my Rider coach trainer, you guys know Mike Chapman and Rick Pike. So one of the things we were discussing is, you know, Mike and my QAs have quite a bit of narrative in it, and we follow the range cards, you know, kind of point by point, and make some notes, you know, what we saw good, what we saw bad, and just seeing where to go with it is the next step, I guess. So how are you guys handling it, Rick?
Well, we are getting just off the ground, and when we had our training, one point they made was to not limit the stellars, but stellar is truly stellar. So you know, give them out gently, or you know, in the appropriate fashion. So it sounded like there shouldn't be too many, unless you're, again, you know, stellar is a top shelf quality that you're shooting for.
Yeah, like a level 3 or 4 coach.
Yeah, I have to admit, I haven't seen much level 3 and 4 coaching so far. It's
Yeah, we haven't either.
You could also treat it like inflation, and just now you need a new level. Call it interstellar.
well, just to, I think we need to gather as a team and find out the commons and the uncommons to the whole situation, what we've seen in common and what we haven't, and then you know, maybe we're going to rely a little bit on Bob's experience, since he is involved in New York, and take his wisdom and his experience to heart, and then come up with a plan to what to do. I believe, see, all our visits are announced this year, and next year I think we're doing. The plan right now is to do one announced and one unannounced. So that might even reveal more. We'll have to see.
We didn't do any announced ones. We just show up there in the morning and introduce yourself. I'm here to do a QA. So
I had an unannounced QA about 3 or 4 years ago from the state director, from the assistant state director. He came in and showed up one day, which, you know, I had no problem with, and I went ahead and did my usual thing. But I was on a full-size range with six students, because I was the only coach there. Plus, I was lucky enough to have a range A. But anyway, the point being is the only thing he gigged me on for the whole weekend was the fact I wasn't wearing a name tag. I guess I was reading the range cards good enough and everything else, but you know, the only thing he said he could find me on was didn't have a name tag. So I guess that's a kudo for me. But the point is, QEs, I have no problem with them myself, and I think they should be done all over.
Dennis, is a name tag a requirement in your state?
I don't know if it's a requirement, but I do know that when who is it? What I can't remember his name. Ray Pierce came over and took over, started the program. When he started running the program, he gave name tags to everybody, and he said, "Yes, please wear them when you're teaching." And that was one of those times I guess I forgot to wear it, but I had it with me, but I didn't wear it. So, when he finally did the final paperwork and he sent me a copy of the report, after it was looked over by the powers to be up above, everything looked pretty hunky-dory, which, I'll take that as a big kudo for, I guess, the way I teach, but there's always room for improvement in everything you do coding teaching.
Yeah, I don't think name tag is part of the QA.
I don't think it is either, but in the state of Missouri, they wanted it to be, but I have no problem with that part,
Yeah.
I guess they wanted to try to find something wrong with the way I taught. They figured the name tag would be it.
Yeah, we have some
Name
coaches
tag.
that do it that way, but everybody has their own way of remembering people. I personally don't do name tags because my system works for me, but it works for others.
Well, I just say relative to QA, to do your best to make the visit positive and with some good takeaways for them and, be a help agent. If they've got questions, answer it. And as a new program starting out, I think that's really important, just to kind of get off on the right foot and not create an us versus them situation. And then in the background, gather the data from your visits, and that will help you identify if there are problems with particular sites or maybe, more systemic problems that could be addressed in a PDW or, some other sort of mentoring venue. It's a good way to kind of figure out, kind of take the pulse of what's happening in your region.
So what trick do you use to remember the students' names?
When we have,
I start
for
out by
me-
telling them I'm going to call them all Fred,
yeah,
and then I'm going to get their names wrong for most of the weekend, and then it sounds as close to friend as possible, and then I work on it.
I had six Larrys and a Lori in one class once.
they get nicknames then. I myself write a little recipe card with a layout of our classroom and write their names down and then stick it in my range cards. So I can remember where they're sitting and then it's easier for me to learn their names.
Yeah, I used to do that when we had a classroom. However, this year it didn't work so well.
That is true.
We do level 2 classroom, and what has worked really good for me for name tags is there are some dry erase table tents that I absolutely love. And then since COVID, I've just been writing those name tags out in advance for the students and then leaving them at the front of the class so they can grab it and bring it to their spot when they come in. But love the dry erase name tents.
We give out on the range, we've got athletic tape, and we'll give students a piece and stick their name on their helmet, and it peels right off the helmet. It doesn't leave a residue or anything. And we tell them, oh, it's so you can keep track of whose helmet is whose, but it's really so we can keep track of who they are.
So is it not a convention that people use like painter's tape or something on the student motorcycles? Because that's what we've always done, and I guess I assumed everybody did it that way. Blue tape on the bike for each student.
Laura and St. when I teach, we have a painter's tape as well. We put it across the headlight, put their name on it, and that way I can remember who I'm talking to. Because when you see them in the classroom, you see their whole face, but out on the range, it's a whole new ballgame.
Well, and in our case, there are a couple of styles of motorcycle often, so it helps the students be able to remember which bike is theirs.
We never used to use the tape on the headlight until this year, and now with COVID precautions, we don't want students switching motorcycles, so they label their motorcycles, which has the advantage of us being able to learn their names a little more easily.
I did a QA at our local Harley, and they had like a little piece of dry erase or plastic underneath the headlight, and they had somebody with really nice handwriting write everybody's names on the bikes. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, for years, we used to use like motocross number plates cut into strips and then zip tied across the turn signal bar. So same sort of idea, and then a dry erase marker.
Eventually become competitive based on the motocross setup.
I'd like to know where Robin is with his 2 bikes underneath your canopy where his travel trailer is. That must be, I'm jealous. I guess he didn't hear me, huh?
He's in Texas, I think Austin, where he's at now.
Yeah, sorry, I walked over to my truck and Bluetooth line of sight kind of went out on me. What were you saying?
You're in Austin, right, Robin?
That is correct. Actually, right now I'm in Kerrville. I'm on the Three Sisters route. Like I am at the beginning of the Three Sisters. So I'm right where the good riding is. And I got a buddy who puts me up every time I want to coach in Austin, so I've got a bed waiting for me there, which is kind of nice.
All right, I'm ignorant. What are the Three Sisters?
Let's see. So it's, if you look on a map, you look for look at Google Maps, look for Kerrville, Texas. Route 16 is a really great way that leads out there. You pick up a combination of State Road 337. They might be ranch roads. Texas has ranch roads here. 335, 336, and 337, and they interconnect with one single big lull that is. Maybe it's 85, I don't remember. I got it all plugged into my GPS, so it just tells me where to go. It's just a really beautiful 225-mile day. Really nice route.
And there's a nice little place called Frio Canyon Motorcycle Shop to stop at.
Yeah?
If you guys haven't been to ride there, it's beautiful to ride.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
What part of the country is that in?
So what is that? It's southwest of Austin, more west than south.
I have to remember that when we get out west next year for our bike trip. We're going to get as far south as Texas, but maybe we might have to change our mind on that one.
Arkansas would do it for you, I bet. But I would welcome to meet any of you here.
If you've never been there.
I think that's a little further than a day trip from here.
Where's that? New York? I can't imagine.
Yeah, if I still had my ZX14, I could probably do it, but
That wasn't good. I need more. With a rebel yell, the grip glue needed more. I'm swapping out, well, I'm not swapping out anything actually. The rubber grips for this BMW, you can't get the rubber grips. What you can get is the entire component because they're heated. So one grip for a Yamaha, $20, what? You get some gel grips. For the BMW, $400 per side.
Well, consider it's a BMW. I thought Honda Goldwing was bad.
Oh my goodness. This is the one and only BMW I'll ever own, and they are hearing a lot about it.
you're just lucky it doesn't have an HD on it, Dean.
Oh man, yeah, well, there is that. Okay, I'll give you that. I have fallen in love with it. Like, that's it. Thank you. Sadistic, financially sadistic messages.
Was that a GS?
No, it's the same motor though. It's a RS.
Ah, okay.
R1200 RS, kind of an obscure bike.
Robin, your mistake was not owning Ducatis before you got a BMW because that will inure you to everything.
Okay, got to ask my question. What kind of bike do you have?
Was that for me?
Yeah.
I have a GS 1200, but I also have a Ducati Street Fighter S and have been a Ducati enthusiast for a long time. My husband still has an old one, and so that they're money pits. I mean, there's really no other way to say it.
Okay, I'm jealous, Laura. Between you and your husband, you got 3 bikes, and I got one on my own plus a company bike.
Well,
does it
I
have
hate
all
to
red
make it
wiring?
worse. I hate to make it worse, Dennis, but between me and my husband, we have 8.
Okay, I'm not talking to you anymore.
I'm technically 5 of them are mine, but I'm trying to get rid of one. So do I get a pass?
I guess in this case, you're gonna pass.
What are you trying to get
If
rid
you,
of?
I say only if you replace it with a multi-strata V4.
Well, I do have the new Gen Street Fighter on my list to add to my apparent collection now. So
Oh, the V4 Street
yeah,
Fighter.
but I can't buy a new model year bike policy that is very hard and fast, especially
might
with
be able to-
Ducati.
You might be able to cause Christopher Rector all kinds of new problems. He just asked you, what are you trying to get rid of?
Okay, so that's also a funny story. I bought a couple years ago. I bought a Yamaha MT-09 or FC-09 because I wanted something that was gonna be able to log a lot of miles and be inexpensive to maintain, like as a work bike. And turns out I don't really like, very nice but inexpensive motorcycles. I kind of am apparently addicted to fancy stuff. So
That's freaking hilarious. That's kind of awesome, though. Well, this massive globule of grip glue should friggin' freeze those on for the next owner that I won't tell about it to.
Make sure you squeeze them while it's still wet, Robin, so it forms to your hand.
Put it on the grip, then squeeze it, and then wait for about an hour. Do the same thing with the butt. You put seat glue all over the seat, then you sit down, grip glue, then really fuse the hands into place and just wait for 15 minutes. You too can become a symbiotic motorcycle person. So what do we want to talk about? We're going for riding.
Hey, Ron, I actually got my new driver's license in the mail yesterday. 2 weeks, under 2 weeks. Do you need a copy of it? Okay.
No, we're good.
Hey, Mike, is that the new type of driver's license everybody needs around the country to travel?
Well, it turns out that's what I actually had. I wasn't aware of it. Being on a border state with Canada, I've had an enhanced license for 3 or 4 years now, but I thought that the enhanced license in New York wasn't good for domestic travel once the Real ID thing goes in. But best I could figure from sorting the New York State DMV website that it is one and the same.
Okay, because I got a Real ID now. I just had to renew my license back in June. And naturally, I had to show them everything in the blue world to make sure I was a citizen of the U.S. and born, raised, and lived in the state of Missouri and St. Louis. And that did get it, so now I'm legal to travel around the country.
Yeah, I went through all that when I got the enhanced license. Basically, the enhanced license lets you do ground travel into Canada or apparently Mexico, though I've never tried Mexico.
I'm not sure I want to go to Mexico on a bike, in all honesty.
Yeah, well, Canada won't let you in now anyway, so it's a moot point.
That's
Real ID documentation is almost as bad as getting a passport.
Yeah, it was basically the same. You know, the 3 different columns. You have to have one item from each column. A utility bill, voter registration, an original birth certificate. The reason I got it is that I wanted to go to the Port Dover motorcycle rally in Canada on a Friday the 13th. And I found out like 3 weeks ahead of time that my passport had expired. And the post office couldn't guarantee I'd get the passport in time. And it was stupidly more expensive than just getting the enhanced ID. So I got the enhanced driver's license and had my had that in, I think it was like 8 days later. So I got to go to the rally.
I've got a passport in that respect, so I use that also as an ID when I got my license renewed to get the Real ID again.
I think if you have a passport, that'll work as for domestic air travel, doesn't it?
I thought for domestic air travel, it's supposed to be effective starting this month, but I honestly don't remember.
I know it got kicked back at least 1 year because of the epidemic or pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had to be, it was supposed to be in effect by the end of October this year,
Yeah.
but because of pandemic, they bumped it a whole year.
So anyhow, my enhanced driver's license has a little flag on it. Apparently that's the cue that it works as a real ID if it has an American flag on it.
My real ID driver's license has a star in the top right-hand corner of the driver's license that shows that it's a real ID. I don't know what other states are doing. What about yours, Mike, in New York?
There is
Wisconsin has a star.
What's that, Rita?
Wisconsin has a star.
Iowa also has a star.
All right,
So does
everybody,
Illinois.
driver's license real quick. Come on.
Illinois has a star.
I think the star in New York is for real IDs, and the American flag is an enhanced ID, meaning I can go to Canada with it instead of a passport. I could be wrong on that one.
Like I said, my driver's license has a star in the top right, so it's a real ID.
Yeah, there's two different ones. There's enhanced ID and there's star or the real ID, and I don't remember what the difference is between the two.
Rita, is your driver's license Wisconsin, Michigan, or all the above?
It is Wisconsin, and it has a star on it, and
So
it's a real ID.
Yeah, that's a real ID.
Yeah, I think stars are real ID and American flags are enhanced IDs, which also serve as real IDs.
That could be true. Because I know next year I'm going to be flying by air at least 2 or 3 times, hopefully.
Again, I spent a long damn time on the New York State DMV website trying to figure it out because I wanted to make sure I wanted to make sure that I had the right stuff, and I don't know, I just went for it. So $100 later, I hope it's right.
Well, apparently it is if you're able to go to that rally, I'm assuming, right?
Well, that was 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, then this is a different story altogether.
Technically, there's one on November 13th, but I don't know if the border will be open by then or what the weather will be doing.
Well, I'm not going to ride up there in November in New York. I'm not that crazy.
No, it's actually further north.
Okay,
Into
well, I'm going to be recovering anyway, so.
Port Dover, Canada. Every Friday the 13th, they have a motorcycle rally. And in the summer months, they get 250,000 people in this teeny tiny little nothing town. I went up 1 year in September and it was 50s and raining and they still claimed to have 50, 60,000 people. It was unreal.
Question for everybody then, since it's getting to be mid-October, how many more classes is everybody teaching in different parts of the country for this season? 0 for Mike. 1, Chris 1. I got 2 more, but I'm gonna be handicapped during that time.
All the way to the end of December down here if I can get into New Mexico. In fact, if I can't get into New Mexico, they got me going over to Texas again, just heading to the...
Well, Texas could probably run them all year long.
Supposedly. But then again, we do get some really cool days. When is it? December, we'll get down to highs in the mid-40s or early 50s. We'll get 15-degree nights.
Robin, a good friend of mine that teaches up here in St. Louis and lives close by, his daughter lives down in Texas, and he goes down there during the winter months and teaches someplace in Texas. I don't know where.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm not doing any more Chicago winters. I can't stand them.
Okay. You heard that, Nicole. We're sorry.
Well, I'll be back. I'll be back next season. What made me a little bit sad was I was supposed to coach in Illinois this season, and I did not coach there even once. I coached in Wisconsin the whole time.
I'll go to Chicago during the summer for a class, or even Wisconsin. I'd like to spread my wings, so to speak, teaching.
Wisconsin's a lot of fun.
Robin, you're awful lucky we let you in.
What's that?
So Robin's awful lucky we let him in.
Yeah, it took a long time. It took a long freaking time.
But they had to get a major background check with not only the local cops, but the FBI.
Well, yeah, probably. I mean, I do remember one of the questions I got from Sarah was, so tell me about New Mexico. I was like, well, does it say anything on the sheet? No, it just says fine paid. Well, that's what you get to know about New Mexico. I just continued on. But yeah, no, I earned my way in slowly but surely, and you know, just made sure Rita was happy with it, and Jason was happy with it, and Sarah was happy enough. That's WD-40. Now that's not.
Well, I guess if Rita's happy with it, that's okay, right?
Well, I don't know. You tell him, Rita. Did I do all right?
He guessed I was happy with it.
Yeah, I'm assuming a lot. That is a very risky move on my part.
Well, hopefully next year in the summer, every place in the country could do a full slate of classes and deal with the any remnants of the COVID-19 at the time. If there's any left, hopefully not, but who knows?
The way you said it, it's kind of like COVID-19. Get your COVID-19 here. Come on up, separate up. Would you like some COVID-19?
Good point, Robin. But the way things are going right now, I have my doubts about some things with that. But I'm not going to get into the political side of that part now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I stay away from. I keep my politics to my damn self. Way to my damn self.
Yep.
In Texas, that might be a good idea.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking positive that next year I could do all the traveling I wanted to do this year that I had to cancel out of because the wife and I had about 4 different trips scheduled, and 2 of them were bike trips.
Sorry, man. Well, those are things you could probably get away with. I mean, bike trips. I ran all of my commercial tours. You know, we lead big commercial motorcycle tours, and I ran them all. Everybody signed their waiver. They knew that they needed to be mindful of other people, keep your distance. You know, basically no shaking hands with tongues. You know, because that's usually how we do it. And it worked out. Everybody was safe with the exception of one downed bike, and that person was fine anyhow.
Robin, you said you have motorcycle tours in Texas?
We're working on that. Actually, where I am is what we're scouting.
If I could.
What's that? Say again?
If you did have one in Texas next summer sometime, I would be interested in doing that in parts of Texas.
Well, it certainly won't be in the summer, you know, because I'm not looking to fry bacon.
Hey, figure of speech. Give me a break here, will you?
If I were going to run tours in Texas, which I do plan to do, it'll be right about now.
Okay.
This is the season.
Next October.
Nice.
No, next October, wife and I won't be in the country.
Well, then how's it a possibility?
Well, it depends on your dates and with my dates because,
okay,
you know, wife and I booked a river cruise in Europe next October.
Oh, you're going to have a blast, man. That's going to be great.
Yeah. We're looking forward to the financial institution we deal with our investments. They put these on once a year, and they got one next year for about 8 to 10 days. Most of that's a Danube River cruise, and we are so looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
But on to something different and more exciting, like motorcycle riding.
Well, we're working with Twisted Road directly now.
Okay.
So, no, Twisted Road is a service where if you have an extra bike, like I always get to know people all over. Ms. Holland, what is your first name? I got L. Holland.
Laura.
Laura, got it. Okay, so like Laura's got a bunch of bikes, right? So if you sign up for Twisted Road, you're basically saying, I've got these 3 bikes that run. I don't care too much about them, but they need to be ridden, and you can rent them out to people, sort of like Airbnb for motorcycles. So I reached out to them and helped them develop their API so that I could list their bikes on my website, and then said, well, hey, what if I run these tours? Can you populate the bikes for the tours for anybody who wants to fly in, land, and then go for the character edge. The character edge. What's up, Donald Green? So that's how, if you don't want to ride your bike to the tour, you could rent one for about $50 a day.
Is there more than one of those services that exist, or is what you're talking about the only thing?
No, there's Riders Share too, but Riders Share isn't as they're not as personable. Like when you reach out to somebody at Twisted Road, you meet a person who will talk to you and get you through the process. So RiderShare Twisted Road, we did it. Maggie, my wife, wrote a long article about it a while back. So if you Google riding obsession motorcycle sharing, that article will come up. Brought to you by Pepsi. Total plug. So yes, before we get into something serious, and I hope we do, because Donald's here and he always brings up really cool topics. But so yesterday I took this whole bike apart. Why? Why did I do that? Oh, because I had to replace the fairing stay. The two arms that hold the whole front end on, there was a crack down the center. I was like, oh, that's going to have to be replaced. So I got the new part. Had to rip everything off, and it took all day. But here's the kicker. So what I like to do is I'll take a ice tray, and I'll line up all the different screws for the different components in order, front to back, right and left. And that way when I go to put it all back together, I know kind of what goes where. And if it's really obscure, I'll just tape it to the part and set it aside. One obscure screw ended up in the third tier ice cube tray and completely wrecked my entire reassembly order. One tiny screw. I had to look at the fiche, go back and forth, try to figure it out. What did I forget? Something had already been put on. Had to pull the entire component back off, disassemble it all over again, try to figure it out. And then I had to go into my parts bin and find the wrong screw from another part that I'm not using because it'll fit, whatever. And now at the end of it all, I still have one extra screw. And I don't know what it goes to.
And
I know
is
it
it
belongs
loose?
in there.
You hear a rattle when you ride the bike now, or what?
Probably.
So that
Basically,
means missing a screw somewhere there.
yeah. Basically, screaming in rage at the top of my lungs into my helmet has suppressed the audio from that rattling sound. So it's all good. We got this covered. And yeah, I hit a wall so hard last night. I had to stop. I put it all back together. I said, I'm going to tape this to my thing, and that's where I am now. What was it from the electric company? And that's the truth. Anybody remember that?
Wasn't that Edith?
That's Lily
Great-
Tomlin. Edith Fan.
Chair.
Edith
Yeah.
Fan. Lily Tomlin.
Yeah, Lily. And it was that electric company or was that Sesame Street?
Either.
All I know
It
is
was
that
the phone company.
I was laughing.
It was
No,
the
the
telephone
It was one ringy dingy, two ringy dingies.
There you go. The telephone company. You got it.
That's a
May I
different.
reach the party to whom I am talking?
What?
You gotta forgive
One
Robin.
ringy
He's probably too young for that anyway.
Two ringy dingy.
Oh my God, I'm not too young. Rita, you're as old as my sister. Half the guy, well, but then, yeah.
Much older sister.
Well,
Ooh, I better leave that one alone.
yeah, I'm not likely to.
So I don't know.
I'm not tying those things together. That's.
I think the word you're looking for is more mature.
No,
We're
don't push
seasoned.
Robin. Mature
I'm
and
not saying anything. I'm clean. My whole.
not in the same subject.
It sounds like Don woke up.
All right. Bust out the old the breath mints here. Cool. All right.
Robin, how much have you had to drink now?
One beer, sir. This is me naturally. Welcome to my default. Welcome
back,
to the...
Belinda.
Hey.
Hey. Okay, so I maybe don't need to come in here right after going to that class, and then Robin lays that down, and I'm like, I go straight into therapist mode. I'm like, so you have a screw left over. Let's talk about that. How does that? And I'm like, because I can see you're very frustrated with that. And I'm like going, Sit on your hands, Belinda. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have come in today.
I'm going to pull that out in a second
Relationship
here.
you have with the screw.
I
How does
know.
the screw make you feel?
Well, when things happen, and we take things apart, things come apart and we put it back together. It's not supposed to be the exact way, right?
There's no version of this conversation that doesn't end with you telling me, Robin, there are 12 levels as to which you suck. Let's examine them all one at a time.
It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad that you had a leftover screw.
It's okay. It is okay. Yes.
Most of us have some sort of a screw loose somewhere.
There you go.
We all got into this for a reason, right?
Yeah, that's why we have a screw loose, right?
Cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. This is cleaner.
You have your lucky bag of marbles in your top case, or did you lose your marbles?
They were taken from me by a bully. Let's see here. There's that.
Hey, Robin, if you were a little closer to me or a lot closer to me, I'd say I have a gold ring for you to clean up.
Okay, let me tell you about the 3 top tier, like adult level neighborly jokes. The first one is, well, when you're done with that, you want to watch mine? The second one is, oh, here comes trouble. They let you out of the house? Like, no. I'm not. It's like where I'm at. I think I hear that like 3 times a day. Oh, here comes trouble. Oh, there's trouble. Here comes trouble. They let you out of the house. They let them out. They let you out of the house. Like, you guys say this every morning.
It didn't take your
about
new
me a lot of time.
Didn't take your new neighbors long, did it, Robin?
No, say that again.
Didn't take your new neighbors long to figure you out.
They knew I was crusty and grumbly the instant I pulled in. They saw the bike come out. Oh, here comes trouble. I was like, bah! Here comes trouble. See how that went? Yeah. I think you heard me too. I'm trying to think of something good to talk about with the whole 8-on-1 thing, because that was a really good time. It was a really good class.
Well, I had asked earlier how many more people had classes they were teaching. Most people said they're pretty much done for the year.
Kato, what are you doing out already?
And I have 2 more classes to teach.
Yeah.
But I'll be handicapped by then.
Oh, is that what?
Well, let's put it this way. I was supposed to, yesterday I was supposed to have outpatient surgery on my left hand for carpal tunnel and corporal metacarpal. But it had to get postponed because the whole neighborhood was losing electricity. So they don't do surgery on generators.
Okay.
So when I do teach, excuse me, the coaches I'm teaching with are willing to do the demos for me.
Oh, okay.
But I have 2 more classes that I am teaching this year, and then I'll be done.
And that's the end of it? You're
For me, yeah.
Where are you teaching at, Dennis?
What's that, Chris?
Where are you teaching at?
I'm on a meeting.
I have Forest Park this weekend.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Dennis, what kind of symptoms are you experiencing?
On my hand?
Yeah.
Well, it's cramps, what's the word? Discomfort big time. Sometimes the pain level is about a 2 or 3. So the doctor said it's a lot of arthritis.
Is it all in your hand from your wrist to your fingers, or does it go up into your arm?
Well, it goes from my fingertips to my hand up into my arm, because sometimes it numbness and tingling, and because the doctor did some tests to find out. He also ended up giving me a cortisone shot in my elbow because he said I had tendinitis, and that did the trick for my tendinitis, but the cortisone in my hand for the carpal tunnel didn't do any good. So course, then some friends of mine, well, never mind. I'm not going to say that because of mixed company, but you know what I'm getting there. But, you know, my left hand is my dominant hand because I'm left-handed for the most part. I'm right and left-handed.
Human resources. Someone call human resources. I feel uncomfortable.
All right, Mike. Hey, I was trying to be politically correct as best I can, but I'm sure every motorcyclist, whether it be male or female, I've heard it all before anyway. Yeah, you're drinking wine as well, aren't you, Mike? No?
No, I've got a nice mead that I picked up earlier this year.
Oh, where did you buy my liquor at? I can't read that.
Pod?
Pod?
Barrel aged. What does it say on it? Barrel aged sweet devotion from 810 Mead Works out in Medina.
Okay.
My niece worked at a beekeeping place. You know, they produced honey and honey-related products, and one of her coworkers would routinely make mead, and he would be invited for Thanksgiving, and he'd always bring a bottle of mead for us. So thanks, Trevor. I've had a thing happen in the last couple of weeks. I've had 2 separate students who have bailed out of a class either last minute or during the class because they were exhausted and felt that they were unable to mentally continue or start even. One guy had a bunch of double shifts get piled on back to back, and he contacted me the night before the class. He says, "I can't do it, man. I got to sleep. I am like done." And another guy, we had started day 2 the other morning. I guess it was just yesterday. And you know, he's halfway through exercise 9, and he said, "I got to stop." He says, "I'm so tired. I can't even think. I had no sleep last night, and I had a big commute, and I gotta stop." And I don't know if that's like a reflection of our culture now, or if it's just isolated instances, but I was kind of surprised that they both happened back to back like that.
Well, and some of that could be the individuals themselves because, you know, with depending on their work schedule, you know, it could hamper them when they try to take the class, because I had a couple of guys that one time they got off the midnight shift and got to class just in time for a 7 a.m. start time. And they struggled to get through it, but they did get through it. And they went home and crashed until next morning, came up and finished up on Sunday. But then another time I had another guy that never showed up. You never hear from him. But everybody's different.
Props for having the smarts to say, "All right, I can't do this right now," because
yeah, they're right. They
aren't there, you know.
Realized they couldn't do it, and they played it smart because they could have been disastrous if they had an accident.
That's pretty good. I had a student this weekend who, dry wit, charming cat, the kind of guy that I would be like, you know, "All right, is everybody ready for exercise 9?" And he would just be, "We're ready." You know, that guy, right? But the thing he did that cracked us all up was every time he started, say like the brake chute, you need to get up to speed quickly enough, right? Every time he would start something like the brake chute, he would scream in his helmet, not loudly, but just loud enough to know that maybe that's how he expressed stress. So you just hear this, "Ah!" and he would then perfectly get up to speed and perfectly execute an action. It was a great job. He did a fantastic job, but he always sort of whimpered into his helmet before anything semi-stressful. So when he went to get his MSP8, you know, I called everybody up one at a time when it was his turn. Everybody in the class did that as he walked to me to pick up the MSP8. I thought that was fantastic. I also had another thing that happened great. This was why I said this was a diamond class. In the classroom, would somebody please read the conclusion? The whole class in sync. The whole class completely in sync. Oh, here comes trouble. Sorry, had to do it. Would read the entire conclusion together as a group in perfect rhythm. And so I was being watched one time to make sure I could do classroom again because of the paperwork and the red tape. And so that coach he felt that was going to be okay now that I'm back.
Did they work that ahead of time or something? Practice that?
No, not a chance.
I'm not sure if that would freak me out more than the deafening silence I usually get when I ask somebody to read a conclusion.
The boss man down here is hilarious because if he and I coach together and they're mum on the range after a classroom like that where they just don't say anything, he'll just he gets mean. He's just like, you guys must have been a riot in the classroom. Yeah, he gets cold. What am I looking at? Donald grit score comparisons. I don't know what any of this is. I do not know.
You may have to scroll up quite a bit there, and there's a couple links for you, Robin. Belinda, I can't remember. Did I tell you about the book I'm reading and how you need to read it?
Yes, the garden book or the
Yeah.
yes. And you know what's funny? You popped in my head yesterday. There is a podcast about gardening that is just randomly out of nowhere, and the way they were talking, I was going, I need to find this and send this to him. Yes, I look very forward to downloading it and reading through it. I'm all about some of that stuff. Like I'm all about y'all would, I don't know how many y'all would completely hate my classes because I love metaphors and I love things like that. I know some of my military coaches that coach with me, I get on their nerves because I'm like, hey, but this end of perspective. And so, yes, I look very forward to reading into it, even though I have the blackest thumb ever. Like I will look at a plant and it'll die. So maybe it'll help me grow my tomatoes without feeding the birds.
The end of the book, chapters after chapter 9, is right up your alley.
Thank you. Y'all, I wanted to tell you tonight, though, one thing I did want to talk to you guys is my mom has a new word that she likes to say now. And speaking of being politically correct, I apologize for using this language, but the word dumbass is now part of my mom's full-on vocabulary because we drove across country. I told for you guys, I was going across to Fort Collins for a training. And so my mom and I decided to make an adventure of it, and we decided to drive. And so we, loaded up her van, we headed out the 1st of October and just went through actually many of y'all's area too, other than New York. I'll be up there next year. But we kind of went through these states, and this person would ride, this motorcycle would ride by me, and I'd go, dumbass. And after a while, my mom was like, what are you saying? And we had gone through the states of there's no motorcycle helmet laws. And it would just come out. And so now I'll be, the last couple of days, I'll be driving down the road and I'll hear her go, dumbass. And I'm like, oh, really? And so I just wanted to share that. I thought that was funny. That was just something that we saw a lot of across country, but we really enjoyed ourselves. And I learned a lot about a lot, and learned that I have to watch my biases when it comes to people's choices on motorcycles throughout the country. I really do. I had to check myself because I just wanted to shake them at certain times. And I did do some self-reflection on that.
No harm in that. Every time I go down to Pennsylvania, it's the same thing.
So you're in New York, though, so I have to share what happened around here this weekend. In the West Point area, which is right on the Hudson and bound by two very large mountainous roads, 9W that runs up along the Hudson, and then there's a cutoff called 218 that kind of jogs inland and then follows the basically the railroad tracks high up in the mountain. Both of them were closed down on the same day, Saturday, because of motorcycle crashes. And I haven't found the write-ups on them yet, but we get these important alerts from West Point, and in both cases, driving erratically, speeding around cars, and both of them went off of a cliff, leaving the motorcycle behind. So New York has some big problems in this area.
No doubt. I mean, in the season up here, every weekend on the news, there's 1, 2, 3 motorcyclists on the news.
This is a very dangerous, they call it Storm King Mountain. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it, but it's a very twisty, curvy road. It gains about, I'd say 1,000 feet in altitude from the Hudson up. And then it's just crazy difficult to drive, even in a car.
Any switchbacks on it?
Oh yeah. Even in a car, you don't go the speed limit. You're probably between 45 and 50, where it's signed at 55.
Don, is there a helmet law in New York?
Is there a what?
Helmet law in New York?
Yes, there is.
I'm going to be leading a ride with people I don't know. This is something I've done many times before on a commercial level, but this time it's for friends and I'm not getting paid for it. A couple of the instructors down here were happy that I was arriving and they want to put together a thing. So I'm about to ask you guys a question. I would love to hear the answer to this because I'm going to be doing this and I'm okay with it. So long as, basically I was told, hey, I got some friends, we want to get together. I know you, I'm an instructor. Let's get together and go for a ride. We'll come down to Kerrville, which is right by this big Texas route, a known roads. And I'm going to bring some people that you haven't met. One of them is like a bit of a squid. Like they don't really have the skill, but they want to say, oh, I do things with people that have been to a racetrack. I've ridden with people who have gone to a racetrack, so I am therefore, I have a big problem with this. I have a very big problem with this. And so there's been a lot of energy about how, and the person said, and I want you to lead the ride, but I want you to do it a certain way. And I was like, no, that part's not happening. And if you want me to lead this, you're also, you yourself are going to have to be led. And I don't know, I've got a whole list of things I tend to say to people before our tours, very specific. Do not ride any road that you can't see yet. You know, because I've seen people follow the power lines, assuming they're going to follow the road, and then they just end up in a ditch. Do not ride any road that you cannot yet see. I don't know how these people are going to receive this, but when it comes to character, I'm not always good at breaking people's walls down to get them to shut up and listen about how safe they need to be when we do something like this.
So,
and yeah, go ahead.
As a question, how would you relate that to a student who is, you know, maybe a novice rider, going out with a group of new people? How would you explain it to that novice rider?
I would say make sure you maintain at least a 2-second distance. Ride your own ride. You are not responsible for keeping up. Do not try to. Do not compete. Do not let the influence of the rider ahead of you have any stake in how you approach any given corner. You may or may not have that information available to you. And that's probably what I'll say. The only question is whether or not they're going to hear those words. See, okay, now I've got Nicole and Sarah. Soon Scott out there, everybody's gonna get in here and they're just feel like, Robin, shut up, man. So that, yeah, go on.
Well, I mean, those are the proper things to say. And like anybody, and I know I've done it when I've been out riding with friends and it feels a little bit iffy to me. You know, you can always just say, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm sorry, I feel uncomfortable riding with you guys. And then you take off and go home or a different direction.
I'll just go a different direction.
That's what I figured. I mean, we all.
I do appreciate that.
Well,
Thank
it's
you for that.
judgment, isn't it?
Yeah, it totally is. You know, and if I have to leave a cloud that looks like me that kind of just it disappears in front of them, I will warn them that's what's going to happen and do it that way. I think I'm a little bit marred from this year's. There's been this year's accidents. I've been a little bit too much proximity of them this season, and had one of my own, if you guys remember correctly. So, I don't know. I'm going to be a lot more heavy on the
So I got a quote for you.
chill out factor. Yeah, go on.
Teachers and administrators, I mean, rider coaches are kind of like in the between there. And you run a business where you take people out and ride, so it fits you, who possess the moral virtue of courage, produce students who have the same traits. So if you're taking a group of riders and you're being a model and you're having these discussions with them that are important, you're providing a model for their future behavior. They're the ones that will, decide whether or not to accept it and go off and do what they want to do. But you certainly set a great model by having the discussion up front. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you.
What is everybody else's thoughts?
Robin is heinously ugly. Look at his bald head. We hate Robin.
So I totally agree with that too. Modeling, of course, is what we do, right? I mean, if we're out there, model, we can talk so much as we want, but if you're modeling the correct behavior, I think you'll be fine. I think you'll be okay. And then, like I said, they'll those that need to follow, that will follow, right? One of the things that I heard something this past week that completely changed the way I look at things, and I'm totally taking this into my coaching thing too, is we're responsible to them, not for them. And so you're responsible for showing them what you know, and and those kind of things. You're not responsible for their actions. They choose to do what they want to do. So just be a good model.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. I think I'll probably do is I'll probably put Maggie Dean between me and them anyhow. So I'll put the better half.
That sounds like barriers to me that you're talking about, Belinda.
I might require it once or twice, maybe for small sections where I might like to just be like up ahead a little further.
Hey, Doc, welcome to the group. I think this is the first time I've seen you here. Good to see you.
Thanks. Not sure how to get this thing to work, though.
I think you're doing just fine. We can see you and hear you.
Oh, right on. Very cool.
Yep. What's going on with you?
About the same old thing. Actually, I wanted to kind of chime in on something that Robin just said about telling people ride their own ride and don't follow what we're doing and all that. And to me, the ride your own ride is almost a cliche because everybody says it, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything. And one of the things I found when I was out with, leading group rides with less experienced riders is that they would get into a little bit of trouble trying to keep up with the better riders. And I made a conscious choice to stop being the leader and instead would put somebody else who was a moderate rider, somewhere in between the top and the bottom tier, let them lead, and I'd actually play the tail gunner instead. And then we had to watch what people are doing, and then when we stop, we could have conversations, asking people how they felt, what were they feeling when they were going through curves or whatever the case was, and then give them not only some suggestions, but real-time observations because I was able to see what they were doing.
Yeah, I'm too greedy for that. I agree with what you're saying. I absolutely do. But half of the reason I run these tours is so I get to go ride these spirited roads up ahead and then wait for them at the stop signs. However, I think you're spot on, and I do know people that do that. Also, mine are not necessarily like advice-based coaching tours. They're more like, you claim you know what you're doing. You've proven it to me via contract. Okay, I'll see you at the next hotel. So speaking of which, I got to plan those for Christmas so people will buy in. Oh, I turned my mic off. Oh yeah.
So there's a guy named Albert Bandura, and he was like one of the earliest guys that really studied hard about education and how people learn things. And one of his things was that we learn through observation. It's one of the most common and powerful ways that we change our own behaviors and beliefs, attitudes, and character. Because if we have to be a model for somebody else, we have to be self-aware of what we're doing. And so, you know, when you give these speeches to people you're going to ride with, because they are kind of like speeches, or you dialogue with
They
them.
totally are. You're right.
Yeah. So, but if you develop that back and forth, that dialogue, you also have to be very aware that if I go speeding off into the nether like a bat out of hell, I just modeled that behavior for everybody that's behind me. And if they're not capable of doing that, you've just modeled something that could be dangerous for them. And so that's why I think it's important what Bandura said. This is how we change our own behavior, beliefs, attitudes, and character, because before we go doing it, we have to analyze what we're showing to other people. And I think that's big for rider coaching, is it not? The perfect demo, the riding away with gear on when we leave the course.
It goes beyond the demo. Students notice everything. I had a 20-something years ago, I had a student write a letter to MSF because they happened to follow me into the campus. And they wrote a letter and said, wow, my rider coach stopped at every stop sign, used the turn signals, and was kind of, you know, writing about how I drove my car into the campus. And I was like, wow, you know, and I was just kind of driving my drive there, you know, but they pick up everything. If I had driven into the campus acting like a jerk, you know, that would have created a completely different impression.
It's not just in that sense, I don't think. The entire time that we're on the range, not just the demos, it's our demeanor, it's the way we talk, what we say. If we come off as inauthentic, the students will know that immediately. If we are the type of people that are the safety crats, telling them what to do, when to do, how to do it. And if they're doing things on the range because we're telling them to do it, they're doing it for the wrong reason. So the way I approach it is to tell the students that they need to be really looking at what they're doing. I'm going to give them a guideline on what to do and then let them do that. If they don't understand what they're doing, then ask the question. But if I'm out there doing something that is contradictory to what I'm saying, that ends the authenticity of myself as a coach.
You know, I often say to the students, don't just break over here because I told you to. Break over here because you have a plan. I'm going to slow down on purpose before this turn so that during the turn, I don't slow down. Don't just dab on the brakes because Lynn said brake.
Exactly.
Robin, are you leading, the people you're leading on the tour, are they paying you?
Yeah, they're pricey tours, and they're like, it gets into the order and the riding order for a normal tour. This one is not paid, but the ones that I usually operate, it's like me, then 2 total control instructors, you know, and then an ADV rider guy, and then maybe somebody who's a little bit more laid back and wants to be able to relax, and then my sweep. So it's usually a max of 7. So these are seasoned riders. This particular instance that I'm talking about, this is not a commercial endeavor of any kind. This is just a bunch of spazoids discovering that the weather's really good. Let's go out and ride with, you know, let's go down to Kerrville and ride with Robin, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
So I'll challenge. Why not look at it as an opportunity then to make good riders? and make good, you know, I mean, if you have this opportunity to work with these people that are cocky or whatever, why not take it as an opportunity to make them better riders?
You know, I think that's what's making me, that's what's like really making me nervous, is that it's only one particular person, and one of my friends who's going to be here that I actually know is a coach, is administration, and just has sort of a wild imagination about how things should go or how they could go. And that's why I told this person, hey, guess what? If you're going to tell me that you want me to run it, then everybody's going to sit down, and I'm not going to start the bike up until y'all shut up and listen to like how we're going to go about this. So that's my plan. I just don't know these people. So, you know, they're not paying me some obscene amount of money to go through the motions to vet them and make arrangements and insist that they sign yada yada. This is just a social thing with one person that people I sort of know are warning me about. It's just a little nerve-wracking is all. But I'll go through the motions that I already mentioned. Hey, here's how we're doing this. This is how it's going to be.
I'd like to, if you don't mind, Robin.
Yep.
Laura, you kind of broached this subject today with the change of culture of riding, and I'd like you to like give your perspective that you gave me on maybe what Dr. Tran said in the IFC stuff, a different perspective.
Well, what did they say in the IRC stuff, or the I don't know what that is.
So I just caught up on the recording from last week's Tribe Talk this morning, and Don brought up Dr. Tran, who is a World Health Organization guy in Geneva, but he is Vietnamese American, and as Don said, is kind of a systems guy versus like a process guy. And so in the closing statements of the IFZ, or the closing panel discussion of the IFZ conference, some of the things that he said really stood out to me as kind of a way for us to either think about what we do in terms of rider safety differently, or just because it was a different perspective that I hadn't considered before. And one of his key points that I really have been thinking about was the idea that motorcycle safety and motorcyclists are viewed as the problem, but really the system is the problem. And if we accept that two-wheeled, one of the terms that the whole panel kind of was using was powered two-wheelers. So the idea is that then we're encompassing electric bicycles and scooters along with motorcycles. But one of his key points was that, or their key points really, several people made the point that if two-wheeled vehicle traffic is part of a successful future in transportation for everybody, then we need to start looking at the ways that the system needs to change to accommodate that, I guess, was one of the things that I had been thinking about. There's probably more that I can't remember. What did I say, Don?
It had to do with culture. You know, if we're part of multiple modalities of transportation and we're part of the system, we also have to look at the culture of how we use motorcycles, not only for leisure and fun, but for transportation. And a great example is, you know, Mike's talking about every weekend there's so many motorcycle crashes. You know, here this weekend, 2 motorcycle crashes, shutting down main thoroughfares in a busy area. You know, the culture is everybody's looking at us because we're having crashes. Well, who can fix that? Riders have to fix that. Cars aren't going to fix it. Trucks aren't going to fix it. It has to start with us. It's our culture that needs to change, and we have to find better ways to get that message across to those people that are crashing the motorcycles.
Right. So like if one of the points was that we need to do a better job of making people in general understand the ways that two-wheeled transportation could make their lives better. And certainly crashing motorcycles in a brash and public manner like you described, Don, is not the way that we're going to convince the rest of the people that two-wheeled transportation is a good thing for them.
All right, well, trying to open up one of my documents here. Sorry about the majestic landscape, whatever. What I would say is that I've never really understood the multiple definitions of PC. But there are instances where you can tell somebody, you know, if you think I'll just figure out this new technique on my own at 70 miles an hour in a curve that is suggesting 45, and I don't know how to trail brake, and I don't know how to suppress rear suspension drift. You know, I don't know how to two-wheel skid, but I'm going to try this and I'll figure it out. Then you are an idiot. Okay? And the reason I say that to you guys is because only a dream student would receive that information with a grain of salt. So sorry, I'm looking for my tournament. Here we go. Leader sheet. So that said, there's got to be something to be said for how we can reach out to somebody and say, hey, this thing that you're trying to do, have you ever practiced it before? Or have you ever taken a class where they teach you specifically how to do that thing? Because I make a joke now and then, even with our ARC. I see the MSARC as the most Fisher-Price advanced rider course there is available. Yes, we do interesting things at parking lot speeds. Yeah, it's a fantastic. I mean, I like taking it as something to just keep my chops up. But there are, here, I'll do this. This will help. I would much prefer taking a class that puts me in an environment where I can stretch the boundaries and enjoy the thrill of learning something new. The culture you're talking about is coming from people making decisions with a gap in knowledge. Just a gap in knowledge. They are trying to execute a technical plan that does not involve anything they've ever experienced before. And that's putting them on the ground. So, and sometimes underground.
So there's a great article, and that's what I was trying to get at, and it took me a while, Laura, to remember, in Cycle World by Nick Einosh that went out in mass mail today. And he talks about the drug Triactin. Has anybody read or heard of Triactin?
It was a good article.
I saw the article.
It took a moment for me to kind of get it. I was slow on the uptake, like, what the hell
really?
are you talking
That's
about?
cool. That's cool.
But, you know, eventually even I got it, that, you know, it's about our behaviors. And we have to try acting like we know what the hell we're doing. And that we have to try acting like we got a little judgment. And I thought it was a very excellent article once I caught on to it all, you know. Yeah. If you haven't read it, I've posted it on my Facebook RiderChoices page. It's worthy of a couple minutes.
I'll check that out. I read that. I started reading it and then coffee. Go on.
That was it. I mean, that's where I was really trying to get at with this whole conversation. It's on us.
I think we have a different, I think in America, motorcycling is viewed predominantly as a sort of leisure activity, a recreational activity, rather than basic transportation. And I think that colors the viewpoint of riders and also the general public about motorcycling and how seriously they take it or don't take it. You know, you look at other cultures, you know, the Asian cultures where everybody has two wheels, and in Europe where, you know, car driving and motorcycle riding are taken more seriously than they are here. And I think that flavors the seriousness with which riders view their education and their ride and, you know, everything about it.
I agree.
This is one of the things that the MSF obviously is trying to address with the behavior and judgment issues that they've added into the BRC, that they brought in from the ARC. And I would agree with Robin about the ARC in a parking lot size. Obviously, there's logistics involved and costs and stuff like that. But I run the ARC on a massive pad where we're doing 45, 50 miles an hour in those exercises. And it completely changes the dynamic of that course to make it much more valuable to those riders, because they can actually kind of apply it to a real world environment, kind of as a stepping stone into whatever follows. The problem is what follows is not readily available at reasonable prices, number one. Number two, there's no real incentives for people to take those follow-on classes. Our system here in America is designed in such a way, get your license, you're good forever. We don't need to take follow-on training as they do in other cultures. Over in Europe, they are very serious about it, but you can't just get a license the way we do it here. And then over in Asia, I was in Jakarta, Indonesia, about a year ago this time, and I was just dumbfounded by the hundreds of thousands of motorcycles just packed everywhere. And in a city of 12, 15 million people, I think there are a whopping 3 stoplights, and yet nobody crashes. Everybody just kind of works together to go where they're going, whether it's on the motorcycles or cars or trucks. But here, at least where I live, it's like a competition just to go 2 miles.
So I want to kind of move this a little bit further, and this is Don's opinion. I want everybody to take it only as Don's opinion. If you look at the 5-year plan that NHTSA put out for motorcycle safety, rider's education is a very tiny part of it. And that's because there's an issue with how what we do is being looked at in the United States. And this is, once again, Don's opinion, a little warning. If we continue down this road, you're going to see what we're doing going away. Just like you saw driver's education in schools go away. And so I'm going to read a little bit from this book that I just got it last night. I'm enthralled with it because it talks about professionalism. And it says, in any profession, a unique service is afforded the clients of the profession. That's our students. A unique service. It's a small unique service in America. As with any profession, developing a relationship with your client is critical. And that relationship is built on trust, which happens to be something we talked about last week. Epistemic trust. How we are going to receive the feedback from our students and others in our profession that we are authentic and we really mean what we're laying out there. And it's important to us because we're professionals. A critical element of our profession is the commitment to it. If in our profession we choose to hold ourselves accountable, things work out well. If we do not, then someone else will hold us accountable or the profession will disappear. And I think this is important because if you look at the 5-year plan, we aren't being represented. They're looking for other ways to do what we do. They're losing the human element. And the reason is because we still got people out there on the road using poor judgment. So as I throw this out there, what are your thoughts on it?
I was showing this earlier, Don. This is something we hand out when we do shows and events. And basically just trying to get the message, rider responsibility begins with the rider. And when we do talks to different groups, our state coordinator does a lot with the safety aspect, but we go to a lot of the charity events, charity rides, and people will say, well, you know, cages are out there killing us, or this is happening, and that's happening. And we actually have our state fatality report with actual statistics showing how many times, you know, the rider was speeding, how many times there might have been alcohol involved, or other factors, that the riders are really the ones getting in trouble,
Better than
and
65%.
kind of show them.
Yeah, but we also get all kinds of walks of life who come in to take the class. Some of them want to, you know, there are states where the bait is, hey, you'll get your motorcycle license. And that's the only goal they have. So they're going to take the safety course, they're going to get their license, and that's all they want. They've gotten enough of the information in that they can then eject it back out, and they continue on with that with no interest in learning anything else that they can't, quote unquote, teach themselves, i.e. what I was talking about before.
But let me, I don't mean to interrupt and act like the people in Congress, but when we have them there, they're captive. And then it becomes our challenge. It's up to us. How do we make the impact strong enough that they listen? That it's not just about getting my license. Because if one of our profession exhibits a behavior that is outside of our values and norms, and that behavior goes uncorrected, it will eventually catch up with us.
Well, I'm kind of on a high horse because I got a diamond class, so I feel good, but I get bad classes too.
And you should. But when we have a student in the classroom, that's our opportunity. Because if we don't take that opportunity to make a difference, to get them to come back for maybe the next level class, to make enough impact on their judgment that they're sharing it with their friends. If we don't do that, our profession is damaged because we're not having enough impact. And eventually, we either don't have the students or we don't have the profession. So what's it going to be?
It's hard to measure though, you know? I mean, we have our class and we might think, woohoo, I'm teaching this class, everybody seems engaged, I feel like I'm hitting a home run here. But who knows what their behavior is going to be when they leave the class, you know?
Relatability.
How do we track that? I mean, you really don't have a way to, so far, we don't have a way to quantify that other than our perception of how this was received, you know? And, you know, I do my best to hit home. Everything you do on your bike is a choice, is a decision being made. You know, do I ride today? How fast do I go? Where do I go? What do I wear? You know, I mean, every single moment of your ride is a decision that you should make, and hopefully safety is your, you know, guiding your decision. But how do we measure it?
A lot of that is a lot of that's those aha moments when you see it in their faces. One of the things I've been teaching the ARC going back, you know, 12 years into the new curriculum, which was kind of developed from the ARC, where they were dealing with those behaviors and the judgment and all that. And the more I do this and the more I start to really get into these activities and find a way to relate them to all those idiotic myths that are out there. Open your eyes, look for me, look twice, save a life, blame it on the cagers, all that. But find the points in the class that you can refute those myths and actually give them something tangible that say, oh, this makes sense. Just an example that I had just like 3 classes ago, never done this before. After we did the braking exercise at 15, 25 miles an hour, we were literally standing on the painted corner of the range. And we started talking about the exponential growth of braking. And I always try to tie out, okay, how far out are you actually in the intersection at 60 miles an hour? And somebody in the class will have some mathematical ability, and they will always come up with 360 feet. That's when I realized all I have to do is point down to the other end of the range, say, you see that corner? That corner is 220 feet. Now imagine another 140 beyond it. And the light bulbs went on amazingly to where they realized And some of these guys we do this in the BRC too as well. So they're on their own bikes and they're out there riding at 60 miles an hour down 45-mile-an-hour streets. And the light bulb came on. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to crash into a car because I'm in that intersection, whether I like it or not. And so those aha moments will come up, but I've looked at every one of those things, try to figure a way to take all those myths and refute them, get them thinking about what we are actually talking about. And it's, I guess, the best we can do because there is no way to measure it.
Well, Ted Jenkins is in here. He should have something to say on this one. So, but then it also goes back to what I was talking about. Do they have the technique in hand involved to brake better than the newer rider at 65 miles an hour and a 45?
I agree with you on that, Robin, but there's still physics involved, and Sir Isaac was a pretty smart guy. So you can be the best braker in the world, but if you don't know when to apply those brakes, it doesn't do you any good.
That's my point. You and I are on the same page because what you're talking about is like, do they have that in their toolkit?
The answer is C.
so this goes back to like again, a couple of things I heard about. One was relatability. If you have a captive group of students, you better be relatable enough that they're happy to be there.
That's also called authenticity, and I think you got some of that.
Yeah, thanks.
The thing I was sorry, Robin.
No, you're right. Go ahead.
I was going to say the thing I was going to add is if you don't have this, obviously nobody's perfect and nobody can predict every situation. However, if you're not self-assessing and realizing, hey, I'm not going to be able to stop at the speed I'm going, so I'm either going to slow down or this looks like it might be a dangerous situation up here. I'm going to start getting ready or changing what I'm doing. It's basically like we were talking about with the responsibility or trying to instill self-assessment of let's try not to get in over our head here, because if stuff starts going bad,
you dropped out, Josh.
Yeah, you lost your audio for a second. Go back. If it starts to get bad is the last thing we heard. Check your audio inputs. The last thing we heard was if it starts to get bad, because that sounded freaking rock star, like my rock star light. Check it out. Sorry. Will you type that? You should totally type that into the freaking group chat, Josh, because you went mute. There you go. There you are. Say anything. Not the movie.
I could try.
There you go. Gotcha. Say it again.
What's that?
I don't know. We lost you at some point.
Did you lose it?
The last thing we heard was if things start to get bad.
Ah, okay.
While they're braking.
Maybe I'll talk slower too. It's that whole Massachusetts accent.
No.
My bad bandwidth.
The mic's like, I'll just mute you. Go ahead. Let's get this.
Yeah, I just don't like that Massachusetts accent. That's what it's saying. But no, basically I was saying if the situation goes bad, it's not what I was trying to get at is it's not always the skill level of how well can you brake, how well can you swerve. It's staying within your personal skill limits for the skill that you have and not getting yourself in over your head.
Oh my God. Thank you. That's freaking awesome. Somebody freaking said it. Know thyself.
I think Clint Eastwood said it best, Robin.
Just don't bore me. Clint Eastwood said a lot of things.
A man's got to know his limitations.
Nice.
I think there's lots of places, within the BRCU to kind of call out, well, gee, as a new rider, how might that change, to kind of get people to think about where are they at as a new rider, in the global perspective.
I want to go back a little bit, Lynn, to what you said about how do we measure it? What are your ideas? Let's voice what we think would be a good measurement. And if we don't have one, let's come up with something. Because I don't mean to spread anxiety, but whenever they start writing you out of plans, you should be a little bit concerned if this is what you plan on doing for the future. So, you know, what can we do to influence, to make a difference, to increase the visibility? I think what Doc brought up about some of the messaging in drivers training, we've known for years doesn't work, and yet we still keep spending money on it. What can we change to make a difference?
Well, who are the, I guess part of that answer is who's doing the decision making, and what do they need to convince them that this has value? You know, I mean, you can kind of work it backwards a little bit, maybe.
Well, I'll tell you that's how this works. Is there's a group of people like us, and we get together and we come up with a good idea, and we share the message, and we pass it on to the people we know, and that's what makes a difference. But if we're not willing to do that, nobody's going to do it for us.
You need Jason here.
He's been invited. He gets the emails. He's no different from anybody else.
You know, I found that there seems to be as the motorcycle industry seems to be constricting, that the motorcycle rights community that originally pushed for a lot of this is fading away. I'm a member of the Motorcycle Riders Foundation, and I get the monthly magazine, and half the states are no longer represented. Even as the state programs evolved or their offices evolved, the education part seemed to, at least from my perspective, seemed to take second seat to the statistics, you know, coming up with reports and trying to convince things. And there's nobody out there actually talking to the legislators anymore on what we need as a community.
I was also gonna, okay, so you were like, what's gonna entice students to take the classes that are not, say, like a BRC or not like a license course? I thought about how, I mean, you're gonna meet a lot of students that are all rock and roll. They're in it for the nightlife and the thrill and the action that comes with, oh, now I'm a motorcyclist and this and that. To get them to move on to the next level, first you have to identify what they're going to be interested in. And we try to do that a little bit, get to know one another. But to actually convince them to take another course, you know, one of the things we talk about is don't get competitive in a public environment, right? Well, what if there was enticement for like a skills practice where it becomes a question of like, hey, who's going to turn out to be the best at this little thing or the best at that little thing? Who can brake in the shortest distance and, you know, not create a crash? I know it's completely outside of the logic of what is motorcycle safety, but in the end, you got to get people in there.
I don't think it is. I think those kind of measurements, those kind of challenges in the right place gives credence to what we do, because you're doing that in a closed course area, you're doing skills tests, and you're enhancing what's going on within the culture and community. What doesn't work is we teach them how to corner at high speed and use the shortest route around the curve as if they're on a racetrack, and then they go do this out on the road. And that's what's happening.
Green lighting it.
That is part of the problem. I'm not saying the whole problem. And what it comes down to is a culture. Doc, once again, great point, bringing up the fact that, you know, motorcycle rights organizations were at the head of all this training when it first started. They were the advocates. And where are they now? Are we working in concert with them to make things better, or is there friction between us and we're not working even though we're all stakeholders? How do we employ those same people to make this better again? It's going to take all of us. There's not enough people in this Zoom meeting to make that big a difference. We need to bring more voices into it. And if we don't voice our opinions, if we don't start a movement, I hate that. Sorry, I apologize. It's just, it was there.
That's all right.
If we don't start a movement, if we don't address the problems that we see then we're not doing ourselves any favors, and we're not doing motorcyclists any favors, more importantly.
Yeah.
They're going to be addressed for us is basically what your next statement should be.
Yeah.
Well,
You're going to have to buy a $30,000 Ducati with active speed control just so you can get out on the road.
If there was,
Not that I would turn
like,
it down if somebody gave it to me.
it seems like there's in the training realm, there's a missing link that sits between what we offer in most of the BRC classes, whether or not BRC, the MSF, whether it's ARC or the bike binding courses and all these other things, and then those track schools, Champ School or California Superbike School or whatever. There's that missing link, and I know the MSF came up with that circuit rider course, and I took it as a student about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and at first I couldn't really get my head around the course to understand what was it really trying to accomplish that we weren't doing in the ARC on the large range, and it finally dawned on me that what that class kind of accomplishes is that middle step between the parking lot training and those high-level skills track schools that are out there. But again, it goes back to the problem of where do you provide something like that, because nobody wants to let you use their parking lots without exorbitant fees. And you know, I don't know Robin's business, but I would imagine you know, there's a lot of expenses involved.
No, I breed anteaters for a local marshmallow farm. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I went to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway to ask them about their parking lot, and they want $2,400 per day minimum just to rent the place. You cannot run a business with that kind of exorbitant fees.
And I think that is one of the major problems we're going to be running into in the near future is there's no value, there's no money in what we're doing.
Yep.
Well, see, that's relatability. So 2 things I introed with in my class this weekend. Like I said, I got dealt a pretty dang good hand, so I'm lucky. The first thing I was like, all right, I put on a geek voice. Is everybody ready for serious fun? And of course, that kind of breaks the barriers down because, of course, they're only there for their license. But if I could prove myself to them with the information, however I acted out, in a way that draws them in, we can joke around outside of it. They are going to sign up for different classes. It's already done. That went well. But the other thing was what we were just talking about at the end there. Remind me. Where did we just lead off?
The missing link between the parking lot and the tracks, and the higher level track schools.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, it was the same discussion as before, where I basically, you know, go represent us well, go find the better rider, and make sure you always have new learning anchored into your following month, at least once a month. And then I explained it. You know, so Sarah and Nicole brought up humility last time a little bit, and I told them flat out that there's not a single month where I don't have my next learning event anchored. It is a rock climb into the next month. There's always one thing, and I'm going to surround myself with somebody better. I joke about, even though I am clearly the authority on all things motorcycle, I am the end. You have met the master of it all. You know, get a big laugh of it. Make sure you're going to do something that is slightly outside of your skill set in a safe environment and become better one step at a time. You know, heck, I see Ted in here, or even Kelly Howard. Every time I've coached, and Rita's here. Heck, Rita was mentoring me half the time while I was in Wisconsin this past season. And Ted, I learned a crap ton. I'm always trying to make sure that I'm gaining whatever knowledge I'm missing for the next thing.
Were you just watching me to figure out how not to do things, Robin?
No, you were just, I really took it to heart. Robin, you're turning in way too late. That spoke volumes, and it changed everything. And then Ted said, here are the keys to my Harley, go try it on that. And I was like, you're gonna shoot me, aren't you? He's like, I might. And then he did. But I mean, that bullet in my foot is a souvenir, and I'm a better man for it. Albeit limping. Ted's not listening. He's just, is he even there? Are you there? Are you? Perfect. So I think it was the one on the bottom left, or maybe it was an arrow. So, I think trying to find a way into the humility of it all. I've heard so many coaches in so many locations offer me unsolicited advice about crap I already know doesn't work, but because they have a defense mechanism, whatever it is, nobody wants to learn from that. Nobody wants to learn from, hi, you've never heard of me and I don't have a name in the world for any purpose at all. Now go ahead and I have some advice for you though. Who's listening to that? They have a goal, the license. Okay, but what if you're able to identify with them from start to finish, keep their attention in a way where they're actually relating to you as a person on a parallel level, let them know that you're still learning too, let them know you have your weaknesses, wear your heart on your sleeve a little bit. They will legitimately take interest in what else is out there.
Do you see
Hell, you can bring up
Robin?
stunting. You can bring up stunting. There are stunting classes.
Did you
Sorry, go
watch
ahead.
D-Rets yesterday, Robin?
I never have any time for it anyhow because I'm too busy trying to re-embrace my bank account. So I have not watched any of it. I've watched exactly 0 things that have anything to do with any of that stuff. And I know I respect that it's out there. I'm not trying to dog it. I just have not had time to touch any of it.
I think what Ray brought up in VRETS yesterday about the connections between rider coaches and students is what you're talking about. And getting to that authentic relationship, caring about them, I'm going to use that word, caring, communicating, connecting. I think that's what you're talking about. And that's exactly what we need. But we also need more people that are willing to get to that place and not some of the older ways of doing things. I have a quote here from a guy named Skinner. Did I touch on Skinner yet? Anybody ever heard of B.F. Skinner?
Yes.
Heard of him.
What'd Skinner do? Come on, Sarah.
He was one of the founding behaviorists in psychology, and he made the Skinner box, which showed if you take a rat and put it in a box, you can train it to do pretty much anything.
You know what his famous quote about that is?
Rats rock.
Pretty close. His quote was, "The rat is always right." And what he meant by that is that good organizations can breed and sustain excellence if they have high standards and they hold everybody accountable to those higher standards. But organizations with poorly articulated or practiced values will sustain failure. And so if you provide the rat everything he needs, a good environment, they'll do well. If you don't give them a good environment, they'll fail. There will be problems and they'll eat each other. Oh, rotten Gotham. Who is that? Tom Wolfe? Anybody ever read that? So it also gets back to what kind of theme that ran through last week and this week is epistemic trust, or being authentic and building trust with our students and each other. It's a bank of trust, and it's really easy to fill up if we all get along. But if we don't get along, if we don't work together, if we don't have one voice that we're carrying forward to everybody, that's when things go awry. So maybe by next Wednesday, y'all can think about this a little bit. How do we voice how to make improvements in this big system that seems to be neglecting us? Any ideas? Not right now, right? Laura's going to sleep. But
No, I'm not going to sleep. I'm thinking, I guess I think that, and I've said before that I just feel like we have a marketing problem, and everything that's been said, it's easy for us to wander around ourselves about technique stuff and, what we do in classes. And certainly that is important, but we're also talking about and amongst a group of enthusiasts. And I think that your average student or motorcyclist is not necessarily an enthusiast, and they come into the sport, or it gets on their radar, or transportation, however you want to think about it, it gets on their radar without them having a solid understanding of it being something that is a fairly involved skill set that's going to always take work. They think they're going to learn how to operate a motorcycle, and that's going to be that, end of story. And so I feel like in the big picture, we need to figure out a way to change that perception before people even decide to become motorcyclists.
I think there's a couple of levels here, because I feel like on my sites, on an internal level, the site does well at students find the coaches approachable and believable, and even coaches that get counseled out, students that get counseled out, they call me up and say, oh, the coaches were amazing, they did a great job, it was me, etc. But it sounds like we need to have another level of communication to the powers that be, or the global community, to put more value on rider education. So taking a leap from our own little worlds into the bigger world of what we do.
I found a couple catchphrases for like the SP series courses for the BRC2s and the ARC that help. That that is to break the rules. Tell them you're not supposed to say this, but, and at the end of the class, goof around with. Have you ever been curious about what happens when you operate the front brake in a moderate amount and compress the front end? It allows you, tightens up your motorcycle's rake, and you can turn tighter and all kind of, then you have the rear brake, and then you can take a decreasing radius turn. You just get them all confused and laughing about it and say, okay, yeah, well, there are places where you can learn to do these things, and they're really good for your safety, believe it or not. That's next level marketing. Right now, what we have is like forced marketing. You want your license? Take this class. And I mean, that's got to be helping the data. I mean, if they want to see new data, take the class away. That's going to produce some new data. It's going to be some messed up garbage. They're going to be eating that real hard. Oh, okay, so what's working for me right now, saying this out loud? I'm not a rider coach by default. I'm a rider. I just need to support this freaking crack habit. So I coach, and I love coaching. I didn't think I would, and then I really learned that, no, I really, really don't like doing this. But again, this stuff's expensive. Then it got better, and then it continued to get better. So indifference to the platform, that is an emboldening thing. You get to speak your mind on that. And what I'm saying is that if they want to see a shit show, take the class away, because that's going to rain. But then also, if we're forcing a student's hand, like, oh, you want your license, come here, take this class. Okay, cool, that's one thing. Connecting them to the next class, it's going to involve enticement. We have to be able to speak our minds as coaches, as individuals, about what we like about the next level event. And we got to know the people that are going to be good for what a student, I'm not a cruiser rider, but I know a cruiser rider in my class when I see one, or if I listen to what their opinions are, if I listen to them, we talked about that before, listen to your students. Do I know the cruiser rider for them? I've been bragging my butt off about getting to work with Ted Jenkins ever since I got down here. That was a real treat. And sport bike riders. I mean, my boss, while I was working in Wisconsin, he finally gave me the opportunity to become a control rider this year at the racetrack. I'm going to know the person who was part of the MSF that I should point them to for a specific type of class, because they're going to relate and they're going to learn more, and I can do it without insulting their current knowledge base. Man, that was a damn good beer.
Well, at least you don't sound like Max Headroom tonight.
Oh, but enough about me. What does everybody here think about me? Taco.
maybe something we can add to our challenge of being rider coaches is in day one, we kind of make them motorcycle operators as they learn the basic skills.
Rock
but
on.
to what Lara was speaking about is how do we make the transformation from operator to enthusiast to get them to buy in that it, if they're going to be in, maybe I'm making an opinion, but if they're going to be involved in the sport of motorcycling, the commitment level is beyond just being an operator. It's another step or two or a dozen more than that BRC.
Contrast that though, if the way forward or if the future is that there's going to be more two-wheeled vehicles, then those people are all doing that because it's transportation. So how do you convince those the transportation users that they should be enthusiasts too?
I think
There are those coaches that probably would like for every student to want what they as riders want. I think that's a big obstacle for any coach that says, well, all riders should clearly want the thing that I enjoy doing. Like I personally enjoy spirited riding on a sport touring machine, on twisty roads, blah, blah. My point with this, before I forget it, before I freaking have an aneurysm, is that we don't really have a lot of one-on-one to push all of our desires as riders off the shelf and to deal with students one-on-one and to hear what kind of thing they might end up wanting to do, and then having that open dialogue with them to give them suggestions. What's hard about that is that it's not in the guidebook and it's not in the cards. And how do you judge whether or not a coach is responsible enough to handle presenting information to this person? Oh, you're interested in that? Well, you might want to consider these things that, and not every rider coach is riding every single day and keeping it technical all the time.
But there's room in the BRCU to bring like another level enhancements, especially in level 2. They kind of got the basics. When we get into riding the circuit and stuff, you can talk about, well, now we're going to work with our motorcycle suspension by, improving the timing of where we slow down and where we get on the gas and the finesse of riding. And I think you can build an enthusiasm with that, and you can see the progress as they go through.
You can, depending on the person. This is why I think you might be a better coach than me.
I mean, there's places, I say, hey, now we're going to see how smooth we can do it, and it has to do with where things happen, and there's places where we can, I think, again, plant the seeds for improvement to get the thought process happening. I mean, I remember when I was doing my instructor prep back in 1991, and we were surmounting obstacles, and the guy said to me, hey, if you roll on the gas right before, it extends the forks, they could absorb the impact, and then you roll off and it helps the back end go over. And I was like, oh, light bulb, we can use our suspension to help our motorcycle go over the obstacle more smoothly. I thought that was the bomb. And I try to find those moments in the BRC to spark that light bulb and the enthusiasm in the students to say, oh, holy crap, this is amazing. I had to go share with everybody else. Hey, did you know that if we do this, this happens? That's great.
And that's the thing, is we're the ones on Tribe Talk, and I think we're the ones that do that, but it's getting the rest to do it or to be there. I'll ask at a state update, okay, how many people here, teach the BRC? And of course, everybody. How many people have taken as a student a BRC 2? A few hands go up. How many people have done this? How many people have done that? And it's fewer and fewer hands. So some people learn to become a rider coach at the basic level, and they ride at the basic level, and they only have the knowledge and understanding at a basic level. So they think that the Bible is, you know, slow look, press roll. They think the Bible is everything we do in the BRC, and they never think of another level. So the way that they portray it to their classes is, hey, congratulations, you got your license. And really, that's a shortcoming.
There's two issues that I see here as well. I'm sorry, you got something, Laura? Or?
I was just going to say it's exactly the same as the problem that I posed with regard to students. How do you convert just a regular rider coach to a rider coach enthusiast? How about that?
So Laura, I was going to say, I earlier you said something about marketing and stuff. You guys, one of the things I find that I love about you guys, that you guys keep talking about next level, next level, next level. One of the things I want you guys to also understand is some states, we get very frustrated because we don't have the opportunity to send our students. We say, I know my frustration in my state is we say, yeah, we're going to talk about the next opportunity and the next steps, but we don't have this offered, right? It takes so much because if they don't get filled, they don't get made. The only reason we've ever had an ARC in the past, I mean, I know that the coach that coached my ARC said that they had never filled one, and he had been a rider coach for at least 6 or 7 years, I think, and they have never done an ARC because they would put it out there, and no one would sign up. And the only reason that class made is because I wanted to take it, and I recruited my motor maids. I recruited everybody. I even had one of my BRC students that I had literally taught 3 weeks earlier was like, well, I want to take it with you. And the only reason that class made, and it was the first time in almost 6 years that class had ever been made in the state of Alabama, is because I was like, I want to take it, and I made people take it with me. We filled that class up to like, we had 10 students, which is unheard of. So I think one of the things you guys, I would say you got to be grateful for is that you can offer those classes. You guys have those classes. Like, we don't have any on the books. I don't even know the next time that I'll get an opportunity to teach. You know, I haven't been able to teach a BRC2 because, like I said, I took the, certification, then I took the class myself as a student. We haven't had one since. And that was 2 years ago. So supply and demand, I guess, is the big thing. So I don't know how that, to me, that's the question.
I thought about this. Like, Belinda, what if we were able to use the ARC as a coach's chops course? This is something I thought about. Like, I love those maneuvers. They're great. What if we were able to run the ARC as a regular weekly event with enough coaches that are certified to practice coaching it and enough coaches to practice doing it so we can maintain our chops? Eventually, if we were to tell students, this is just for the coaches, though. I mean, you can come try this stuff, but this is what the coaches do to stay high. You want to come check it out? There is something to that.
We kind of tried that, and coaches weren't interested.
And there's
some boring ass coaches.
The rub.
Yeah, that's it. That literally is it right there. Is that you can't? I know. Trust me, I've tried putting together in Alabama one of these with their little Zoom calls with our coaches. Nobody's buying in. Nobody's buying in. It's like crickets, and I think that you hit the nail on the head. Is that trying to get those coaches to buy in too, and it's frustrating. It super is.
Part of the flaw with the professional development of the coaching corps across the country, because we're so disjointed and there is no central repository of knowledge or skills or whatever to say, what kind of coaches we have. I know some of you were in the IRETs. I gave that presentation on rider coach levels, which is a real thing. Yet you take it back to the programs and nobody's interested in actually looking at who your coaches actually are. When I had my program up and running and I had a dozen people, I made sure I only had.
Go ahead, Don. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I was looking for those coaches, and then the program itself developed a reputation because the coaches that we had were like a certain level. But now it's, you know, I call it institutionalized mediocrity, and it sounds like what Belinda's dealing with down there in Alabama. You know, you get to the basic course and okay, that's it, and that's why we exist. It almost seems to me that as an industry, the motorcycle industry, and maybe this is something that the MSF needs to go knock on the door of the MIC next door, because they're all under one umbrella, and get the industry back involved in training.
Whoa. Well, is that Herheim?
What was that, Robin?
I see Jason Herheim's in here.
Oh, hey, Jason.
So, yes, the motorcycle industry would be helpful in this, Doc, I think. But, you know, hey, their sales are up. And they're not in street bikes as much as they are dirt bikes.
Right, and that's true. But if the industry was engaged, which they haven't been for a long time, pushing these kind of things, you know, sell the bike, take a class, maybe give them a certificate or something. I can't get squat out of the local dealerships because these are big corporate monsters anymore. The mom and pop shops are tend to go away. And those are the ones who really supported us 20 years ago when, you know, we went through, when we were a different core. You know, we could go down and talk to the people, and they give it. Now, oh, you got to talk to the people down in Phoenix or Dallas or wherever they are, and they don't care because they're sitting, half those people don't even ride motorcycles. They just got a job in the industry.
Well, you know, this goes back to what value is in it. And we got to find a way to describe our value better as a group, I think. I want to touch on a couple things. Josh, from what Josh was saying, I think sometimes we go a little bit too far in the BRCU because, you know, every exercise has its intent. We've got level 1 and level 2 classroom, but how many, you know, this is rhetorical, have been into a class and you're with a coach that's teaching, you know, heavy suspension stuff or body lean.
That is not BRCU stuff, though.
Yeah, but the problem
That's
is
what I'm saying.
there are
It's not.
people doing that. And so we may go just a little bit too far sometimes, I'm saying collectively, may just go a little bit too far with the content from the BRC, when we could be saying, now, we taught you the basics, you have a license to learn, but if you come back for the next course,
that's when you
then we
mention
can
that
get
stuff.
into some deeper stuff.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm with I'm
I'm with
totally with
that.
Josh on that. It's like there are moments when you can entice students with that information. My
Right, you're not teaching it, but you're like, hey, there's this, you know, next step stuff. Like, this is great. This is building a great foundation. But as we practice and as we evolve, there's this other stuff, you know.
Yeah. And you can tell half of it just to confuse the crap out of them and give them a giggle and be like, yeah, you want the rest? Here's how you do that. And here's what it's used for. And here's why you need it. And if you don't do it, I'm going to laugh at you. You
So
can
when
even
you
say
trail
that.
break it, oh, wrong class.
But it shouldn't be something that, you know, you do on a regular basis intentionally. It should just go with the flow of the class. Sometimes somebody says something, there's a segue, okay, pull this in, okay, talk about, you know, threshold breaking, what it is, how it works. It said, but we don't really go there in this class. Come back and see us in the ARC.
Well, I'm not going to mention the coach that let me do this, but I did get the coach at one point and asked, do you mind if I threshold break it was during a BRC too? And the coach was like, well, so long as you're uniform. And I was uniform, one to the next. That worked out. It also showed them what threshold breaking is visually, and it was a lot of fun to do. So, I mean, I'll put my head on the chopping block for that one.
But I have to say, we have to be careful as how far we go, number one. Simply because it may confuse, it may be too much, it may add too much to what we're trying to get across in that course. And number two, we're missing the opportunity to have them come back and say, hey, you come back, then we can really start talking about managing the motorcycle better and making you a better rider, not just being that 17-year-old that walks out of the DMV with a license that you have.
I'm gonna get an R6, yo.
And
Sorry.
that's the point. That's the point I was trying to get at is if the coach understands there's other levels, not to teach it in the BRC. I didn't mean anything like that. I'm exactly
I
on the
know.
page you're on, Don.
I know you are, Josh. Ron?
So let me ask you this question. Why do we allow students to come into the BRC that will never go out and buy a motorcycle?
Why not?
How can we entice these people to come back when they don't even have a motorcycle and have no plans of buying one for years, so maybe two?
You know, it's an opportunity to learn. It's education. Why would you not?
Because they're going to be better car drivers and they're going to notice motorcyclists more than they did before.
I have all those answers too. But if they don't have a motorcycle,
Oh, so you want to restrict people that don't have a motorcycle from coming from the class?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I want to get.
So I just want to make sure that you're
get a
not saying
motorcycle
that.
as soon as they can.
I took whatever the BRC was back in 1980 something, and 10 years later, I bought a motorcycle. You know, there was a big gap between my training and my actually buying a bike, and I did go take a lesson with Gasper before I picked up my motorcycle, but you don't always have a motorcycle in the garage when you get your training.
Jason Herheim, if you had a if you have internet, if you had a no holds barred opportunity to speak your mind and the freedom to develop a way to bridge the curriculums from one to the next and keep students learning, what ideas do you have, specifically you, about that platform? How would you go about it?
Well,
First, take another sip from your beer.
no, we're going no holds barred. I got, green light. You know, I think that some of the things I've seen from other states, particularly the guys in Colorado, that apparently their sales pitch is, you're going to buy in for our program, not just for the class. And you get people that are there. I think that's something that's worth exploring. Being that I am new to learning how to completely waste my own money, offering a motorcycle training program, and I mean that I do it because I wanted to, but honestly, there is no money to be made here. So unless it's truly funded by something, taxpayers, I assume, I don't really have a way to implement all of the dreams that I have. And I think the good nature and the feelings that the coaches are in it for, at the end of the day, I can't do everything for free. I stopped short of offering classes where I have to pay for them out of my pocket for people to get a motorcycle license. So I love the thought process. And I know that Ron wasn't saying, hey, let's, unless you're buying a bike, you're out. But I'd love to be that guy that only taught people that were serious. And like you're all here because I assume you're serious. Part of it's to watch Don's party, of course. But being serious and want to do it. And these are the people I want to work with. These are the people I want to help train. I don't want to deal with any people that are waffling. I want to deal with people that want to do this and want to be serious, and let's help them. And they're willing to spend whatever it takes to meet their goals and practice that accurate self-assessment. I think that there's a lot of ways that we could come, even from MSF's standpoint. Obviously, I don't make any of their policies, with the idea of BRC2 for those that have taken a BRC, and maybe some schools do this, and I think it's a great idea. Come on in if you're scared. You can ride our bikes to begin with. We want you to transition to your own bike as fast as possible. We want you to do that. But, some people need path of travel, pat on the back, pat on the head, whatever. Get them going and make that happen. I think that the ultimate bike bonding thing, as MSF did it with basic bike bonding and ultimate bike bonding, should totally be blended together in that take ultimate bike bonding, here's our bike, and again, we want you to transfer to your own. I don't understand why Harley dealers don't do that with the streets in a level 2 class. Come on in, you can do ours, but of course we want you to ride your Ultra Geezer Glide, whatever the hell you bought, and get comfortable with your bike. I mean, does anybody here not want to help people just be a better rider on whatever they came with? I mean, I run a Run What You Brung program at the racetrack. Show up with any street legal motorcycle, some that are questionable, and we'll put you on the racetrack with the rest of us in street gear and show you how to fine tune the skills you showed up with. so far, I can tell you this year, that was $5,200 out of my pocket to do that, to say I did. And it was freaking awesome. Because Robin Dean, the humble Robin Dean.
I'm the humblest.
Out.
Nobody's more humble than me. I'm the
Anyway,
best at humble.
That's what I think. But the biggest problem is, how much can we personally finance? I'm reaching my limits, but luckily with Can-Am, we'll see how long that lasts. We get one more fatality, and I think we'll have a federal investigation if there's not one going on already. Can-Am's funding my entire two-wheel program, and they know it, but they don't know it. So how much money do we want to spend, folks?
This is one of those things where I was saying I kind of want to develop I do some web development. I kind of like to develop some kind of a fly trap for anybody remotely interested in next level curriculum stuff, so that the names, the contact information is there, even if their schedules don't gel. If the numbers stack, and they know that there's a long incubation period to build enough numbers to actually then class, that we can at least grow the numbers to continue learning post BRCU. What that added, I don't know, but I felt like hearing my own voice. I thought I sounded fantastic. Humility.
Okay, I got to jump in here because we're about 20 minutes over my normal 2 hours, and I'm going to have to leave. You all are welcome to stay. I just got to know who to make the host.
Rita.
I thought this was a happy hour singular.
I need a drink.
Happy hours. Here's my request for you. Maybe by Wednesday of next week.
Make Rita the host.
She's already the host. Maybe if we come back next week, what if you had an opportunity to be king for a day, and you wanted to change how this system of motorcycle education works in the United States, so that people like Jason didn't, spend $5,200 out of his pocket, and Sarah in Chicago would get paid really nice at her job, and Ron, who runs his own site, can make ends meet and not stress all the time about how much money Mike is spending. How would you build the system to ensure that all motorcyclists get trained, the profession continues to exist, and it's viable for all the stakeholders? And you're king for the day. Maybe come back next Wednesday and we'll talk about this a little bit more and see if maybe what we come up with as a group can start an idea that we can share with other people and see if it spreads.
I think it's brilliant.
No, but it's a shot in the dark, because I know the smart people are here. I mean, you're here. So.
Oh, and we can't reach our dreams if we don't have dreams.
Well.
Damn, that's cold. That is a dark. Thank you so much.
That was in my fortune cookie the other day, Rita.
That's a dream, because we got to have
so wrong.
For them.
That's a fact, Rita. I endorse that comment 100,000,000%.
It's a truth. If we don't do something, nothing will be done.
But it was the don't have any dreams in Frozen, didn't it?
Rita, you got the document, so you know kind of where I'm going with this now. Do you understand?
Belinda's saying
no,
goodnight
not really,
too.
but I'll just play along.
Okay,
You send me so much wonderful stuff, Don, I can't keep track.
Well, somebody has to. All right, so I have to check out. You can stay, but I can't. Rita and Laura, you're official hosts. Make it go as long as you want. I don't care, except, remember, I do have to edit this stuff, and 3 hours is wow. All right. Love you all. We'll talk to you next week.
Rock on, Don.
Thanks, Don.
Good night, Don.
Good night.